tuned in to the 2-Minute Warning, a live stream community conversation pertaining to social and political issues and how we can collectively resolve them. Powered by the Westside Gazette.
Good evening and welcome to the 2-Minute Warning. I'm your co-host David Wright, and I'm here with my dear brother, Mr. Bobby R. Henry, the publisher of the boldest, blackest, oldest family-owned newspaper in Broward County. How you feeling this evening?
You know, I am terrific and getting better, and I have no justifiable complaints.
All right.
I'm just glad to be here, David. And it's an honor to have these conversations on a weekly basis, and I look forward to discussing some things and giving me a chance to editorialize on some things and learn a lot more on others. So I'm just glad to be here, my brother.
Amen. I mean, this season we're in right now, I think deserves some consistency in having conversation, helping galvanize us and bring us together, and sharing our thoughts on many different levels, but specifically in this political arena. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Looking forward to tonight's show, man. But what's going on, man? It's kind of windy in my neighborhood. What about
things are blowing around. I was sitting at the breakfast table this morning having a cup of coffee, and all of a sudden I heard something boom boom. Kind of scared me, and I looked outside, and the trees and the limbs and everything was blowing, and this plastic garbage can came tumbling by. Oh, I forgot. She's out there. She's out there. Mm-hmm.
Well, we are getting record gust winds for a storm that is like the high is like 300 miles away, and this is really in my lifetime being a resident native of South Florida. I've never seen a storm of this magnitude that far away, giving us the impact it's giving us now. And our prayers go out for those that are in the cone, those that are scheduled to be impacted. We really pray that you guys have heeded the warning, you evacuated where you were required to, you at least hunkered down, and you are doing what's right. And, as the responders say, you're on your own when that storm comes. We can't get to you until afterwards when everything is safe and clear. So please take heed.
Yeah, I know we play around. We think we have so much time to do so much stuff, but in actuality, it ain't nice to fool around with Mother Nature. Get caught if you want. But I want to say this, David, and I want to give kudos to the Broward County School Board members. I know we have in the past not taken any prisoners when it comes to the actions of some of those school board members, and we will continue not to take any prisoners. But as we discussed on a couple of shows ago, we had school board members, Tori Austin and Daniel Hogan. We had them on the show, and there were some things that they couldn't talk about. And one thing in particular was an issue dealing with, of course, a member of the school system who she felt she was wrongly accused, but they had to go through the channels to prove this. And it took several weeks and some humiliating circumstances, but justice prevailed. And the principal, the person that was affected the most by this, finally had the chance to see and have her day in court. And it came out in her favor because 5 of those board members held true to what should have been done a long time ago. It should have been dismissed, should have been thrown out, but it kept going back and forth. And I just want to commend those 5 board members who held true. One even changed her position, and she openly said from the dais that she had received some misinformation and she acted inappropriately. But she went back and she saw I can't speak for her, but she saw that what she did in the past was incorrect. So she changed that. So to Debbie Hickson, school board member Debbie Hickson, I want to say thank you for uh, understanding and taking into account just how wrong the school board was in that particular instance. And Ms. Brenda Pham, Dan, and I don't want to call the wrong name, but it was masterfully done by an extremely articulate and proficient school board member, Mr. Torrey Austin, who had an opportunity to see this brother at work. And again, I'll say that we did a disservice, the voters did, in not voting this young man back to the school board. And I just want to say that. So.
And you know, again, we had him on the show, and he was not at liberty to discuss that matter in fullness. I want to agree with you. I think it is a great loss that we missed out on that opportunity. But I also want to just say to Miss Hickson, that you know, it's big to kind of humble yourself and stand on what's right, especially when you've gone on record. So, you know, we know that's not always easy, and some people oftentimes double down on their position. So that to me says a great deal about your integrity and your need and wanting to serve this community honestly and with integrity. So kudos to the board. I hope going forward, the new board also follows suit, and you can show some leadership there in making sure that the correct information is being disseminated to all.
And the community came out and spoke on Ms. Shaw's behalf. Again, when the community comes out and stands up, we really present a force for people to understand and recognize that you are not in this battle alone. So I want to thank the community for coming out, speaking on Ms. Shaw's behalf, and we will have her on the show to talk about it and how do we move forward from this. And our very own Sandra Shafira.
I said
it right. I said it right. Okay. She was there doing her thing, and it was great. So
awesome.
Good evening, everybody. I see we got some viewers out there.
Yeah, we got folks chiming in, and welcome again to the 2-minute warning. Again, the title of our show tonight is a community conversation about voting.
Yeah.
So before we get into that and all the local politics and all the national stuff that's going on and all this groundswell that we're seeing with these the top of the ticket candidates going back and forth, we just want to encourage everyone. This is not your normal voting season. This general election that we're facing for 2024, November the 5th, it's going to require as many of us participating as ever before. Can't say all. I know we won't get everybody, but we really need to see some record numbers. Those 80% sound like what it's going to take to make a difference, in my opinion, in my calculations. So do what you can. Get your folks ready. Get them geared up. I mean, we're less than 50 days out. We're around 43 days.
Oh, man. You're talking about 40 days in the wilderness. That's here we are. Here we are. So, yeah.
And we'll be talking about a few other things. We have some. We mentioned that poll tape posse.
Oh, yeah.
Our last show, and we'll be talking about that a little more tonight on this show, on understanding all the different voting precincts in your community and the power that you have to go in, take pictures of that poll tape to make sure it's accurate, that number of people that they show on that tape is the actual number that's being counted for that precinct. So, important stuff. If you were on last week and you saw some of the information that was shared, you'll know there's other things we can do afterward. This is one of them. But before we bring our guests on and our sports analysts, anything else you got on your mind?
This storm is one that it's extremely large. It's one of the bigger storms we've seen in a while, and we got relatives and home folk up in Georgia who are asking that we pray for them all along that coast, man. It's horrendous. But aside from that, the information that we need to keep folk in the know as it pertains to voting is at the forefront of all of this. And I'll say it again. We have to stop. Well, don't allow the choir to be the sole people that we're preaching to, if you will. We got to go outside and go to the highways and byways and get those who are not in the Divine Nine or that are not going to church, but are just as much involved or need to be involved with this entire voting process. So that's our mission, and that's where we're coming in with the poll posse, perhaps.
Well, to add to this conversation, why don't we bring our dear brother, Mr. Perry Busby, on with us? I know he has some input that he'd like to share on this particular topic. Brother Perry, how are you, sir?
Good evening, my brothers. Good evening, 2 Minute Warning audience. How are you today?
Well, all is well.
Doing well, sir.
Yeah, I'm traveling. I'm in a great state of Texas today. So
He's coach, y'all.
Man, let's bring Coach on. Man, please.
Well, I hear they need some tightening up over there, Perry. You over there tightening up some things in Texas?
Oh man, they need more than a tighten up. They need a good board to deal with this stubborn mule. But yeah, no, I'm glad to be here in Texas, and got quite a bit going on. But I agree with everything you brothers have been saying so far about our focus and our attention to the details to ensure this victory in the next 44 days or so. So there is still a lot to do. Let's not get it twisted. We got a lot of work to do to ensure Vice President Harris and Governor Walz wins this race.
Okay. Well, let's Perry. I know our special guest and you. I'm sure it'd be great dialogue between you two, because I know both of you, and I know that would be intense. So if we can bring on our coach, we can bring him on, and let's see what's happening in the sports world, so we can get to that conversation between our special guest and us. So, Coach Robinson, are you there?
I'm here and raring and ready to go.
Well, what's happening in the sports world, my brother?
Okay, since Perry mentioned, he said he was in Texas, and the Cowboys are America's team.
Stop that! Stop right now!
Right
you
now,
you cut into my chest, Coach. Come on, we're gonna pass the Cowboys.
Perry, I just wanted to say that you know what, everybody is saying that tonight's game is very important in terms of their winning, but it's also important to the Giants as well. I think we put a lot of stock on winning. In pro football, you have no choice, but there's a lot of pressure on both teams to win, but we'll see how it plays out. But the Cowboys, certainly as America's team, has a lot of pressure on them. Zach Prescott and the receiver who signed those major contracts, and Jerry Jones said they were all in and ready to go, and it's just been the opposite. So you can't count your Yeah, chickens before those, the eggs before they hatch, right? But anyway, that's okay. I wanted to talk briefly about baseball, y'all. Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, I mentioned them earlier in the year. Well, they're accomplishing great things in baseball. Aaron Judge right now is batting .324, and he's hit 57 home runs and batted in 142 runs. He's having a phenomenal year. And the Yankees, if they don't blow it, if they can defeat the Baltimore Orioles, will win their division and automatically be in the playoffs. So we'll see how that works out. But football has a way of overshadowing every sport once it gets started. And they're like the big elephant in the room, So we'll see how that plays out. Let's go now to the WNBA. They had a phenomenal year. The addition of Caitlin Clark from Iowa was tremendous. She has done so much in terms of marketing and increasing attendance. And it's just been a great season for them. Well, they were eliminated just the other night, the Indiana Fever. But more importantly, with that attention has come a lot of derogatory things like racial slurs directed at players, probably because of the aggressive nature that some of the players have used against Caitlin in defense, because she is a phenomenal player, so they can't play around with her. But I call it the 45 effect. I have a hard time saying his name, to be honest with you, because I find him that he's just distasteful to me. But I think the people who follow him have found it easier to say openly what they have kept inside because of his tactics and the way he speaks openly about, for example, Haitian people and that stupidity about eating animals and that kind of stuff. And the Louisiana congressman who also intimated and said the same things openly and was supported by Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. So it kind of goes hand in hand. I hate, I don't want to be political, but that's the truth. But they've had a phenomenal season. Caitlin is a great player, and I hope they continue. And I hope they can eradicate the racial implications that have been taking place. In terms of college football, we got a great game this weekend between Alabama and Georgia, and the winner certainly will have the upper hand in terms of the SEC championship and getting into the playoffs. And they've gone to 12 teams, so that's going to make it a little bit easier for the team that loses to get in. But the talent level and the competition in the SEC is so great that it's going to be difficult for the losing team to just automatically say that they're in and they can win a championship. I like the new coach at Alabama. He's doing a phenomenal job. He is a different take on things than Saban, but he's a winner. He came from the University of Washington. Let's talk about briefly this kid named Matthew Sluka. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was a quarterback for the University of Las Vegas, Nevada. He played 3 games. He allegedly was promised $100,000 in NIL, signed for that much money, and they did not come through. So he has decided to stop playing and just wait until next year and go to another team. You see how quickly that thing is turned around. When we were in school, or even just if you were in a Division I school, you received room and board, tuition, and maybe you got a little money on the side. Well, I think what they've done is this NIL has taken it to the other extreme. So these college players are not actually professional players. When you talk about getting paid that kind of money and being able to leave if you don't get it, I'm not saying that the players are wrong and it should have happened a long time ago, because they were. We had a kid who tried to sell his shirt just to get some money, and he was penalized and punished and kicked off the team. It wasn't fair then, but they've gone from one extreme to the other in terms of money and how much they can pay. I think that what they ought to pay the kids is maybe $4,000 or $5,000. Make sure they have food and to take their girlfriend to a movie and that kind of thing. But it is going far beyond what they talk about. So I don't know how they're going to get a handle on that. the Dolphins quarterback situation. Y'all tell me, if you would please, why Tua led with his head. And isn't it so ironic that the person that he impacted was Damar Hamlin, who was struck in, had a heart attack, you know. So ironic that happened. But Tua, of all people, should have slid with his feet, and he wouldn't have had that concussion. So the Dolphins quarterback situation is going to be difficult to overcome. I don't know what's going to happen there. You all know about Mercury Morris and his death. We'll never forget that Mercury was the one who actually kept the thing going about those victories, you know, undefeated season. And he's saying until somebody else does it, that's it, we're it. And it hasn't happened yet, you know. So we were sad to hear of his passing. And just one final thing, you know, I could go on and on because sports is always giving. But in the black college football, Bobby and David, can you believe that Clark Atlanta University is leading the SIAC over my Tuskegee Golden Tigers, who are right now 0-3? I'm just having a hard time dealing with that. J.C. Smith is leading the CIAA. So, you know, football just has a way of coming back around.
Smith,
it's very interesting. So there's a lot going on, but we're going to leave it at that. I know you all have a lot to talk about. Vote. That's what we have to do.
Well, Coach, I got to tell you, my money went to both Tuskegee and Clark. So I guess my daughter now is talking smack to her brother. That's how that's going down. Yeah. But before you go, the Washington Commanders, Coach, you got anything to say about that?
That quarterback is outstanding. He won the Heisman Trophy. He can pass the ball. He's also very elusive, but he's a drop back passer who will run if he has to. But he keeps his head up and he looks to throw the ball first. And I think a lot of people hate that because they think that all we want to do is run, and that's not true. I don't think you can have a winning Super Bowl quarterback that's not a dual threat quarterback today. I just don't think a drop back quarterback with the talent and how large these guys are and how quickly they move. You got to have somebody who can escape every once in a while, you know, and get out of the traffic. So, but I'm very proud of him. Caleb Williams, I think at Chicago is going to be fine. It's going to take time. Disappointed that what they did to Bryce Young. He's a winner, but I think he'll get another opportunity. And I'm proud of Justin Fields at Pittsburgh, who's doing well with the Steelers.
You see what happens when you give him one thing, he try to run a touchdown. but let me say this. I think we got a Tuskegean, Miss Mary McCleary. She has this emoji with a tear coming out the eye for Tuskegee. Shame on you. Okay, let's move it. All right, two things.
We love Tuskegee. We love our school.
All right.
Good night, y'all.
Two things. Yep. Clark, in the words of Daniel Black, that great author. Here they come, y'all. Here they come. So yeah. So let's bring on our special guest, man. We know him from so many different talents. This former commissioner.
I mean, he's done it all.
Done it all.
President of 100 Black Men.
President.
You name it. He's done
Elected
it.
black officials.
And still here today. And I know he was neighbors with one of our other great locals. But I, without any further ado, guys, we want to go ahead and bring our dear guest, Mr. LaVoyd Williams, on. Mr. Williams, where are you, sir? How are you?
I'm right here, sir. How you doing?
All right.
Doing well.
I can see you right way. Okay, it's better.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yes. So, Mr. Williams, go ahead and share a little more about that illustrious legacy that you've created for yourself.
Well, I with the Bethune-Cookman, and Clark beat Bethune-Cookman this past weekend, so I didn't like to hear that story. But you know, I've been involved in the community since I've got here in '71. Me and Bobby's daddy were pretty good friends. We could play cards and watch football on Monday nights. But I just believe in people, and I believe in working together. All I've done is try to bring all our communities together, because there's still some things about Jamaicans, Haitian, and African Americans trying to be separated. And there are still some forces out there who are campaigning and still believe that. And as long as that happens, we'll never be a whole community, and we'll never be as powerful as we should be.
Mm-hmm. You know, Lamar, that you said a lot when you said that, and you can do that because you've done a lot. You've been on all fronts. What do you see as, I don't want to say the number one issue that's confronting us as it pertains to this election voting cycle? What can we do? Let's start from there. And I know you're doing a lot. What is the simple thing we can do?
Well, the first thing we got to do is, as men, is begin to talk to some young black men. I've been talking to some, and some of these guys talking about Trump gave us money to HBCUs, and then when I tell them, say, well, he did give 257 million. I said, but Obama gave $1 billion, and Biden gave 4 point some billion. And so you want to hail this man as a savior, and he gave you less than anybody else. In fact, much less. But we give him excuses because what happens is a lot of these young black men don't understand that we have improved. I mean, they say everything's the same, but you know, I lived in 1952 and I lived in 1960. I was in the civil rights movement, and I was on a lunch counter at 13 years old. I was sitting at the lunch counter, so I know things are better. Can they be better? Absolutely. But we have to work at it. And we need to stop just worrying about the president and start worrying about these House races and these Senate races. So when Kamala Harris wins, she will be able to govern. You know, when you have a split government, it's hard to govern, especially when we get these Republicans right now who don't mind doing things wrong. Even when they know it's wrong, they'll do it. And only when they are pressed do they do the right thing. And then when they're pressed, for instance, if you take the Biden-Harris CHIP Act, all these guys voted against it, and then they go back to their constituents and brag they brought this money back. And the constituents are so, I didn't say dumb, but they're so uninformed that they begin to believe that this guy gave them this money and he really didn't. You know, he had enough. He put his money on the stimulus checks, and some of the people think that Trump gave him the money when they didn't realize he was fighting against it. But he couldn't sign. He had to sign it, and so. But then he want to take credit. So, well, if I'm gonna sign it, I'm gonna put my name on it. And he's the only president had ever done that, ever.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, he's the only president to be convicted of 34 felonies too.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows you how the justice system works. If you got a lot of money, no way in the world any of us on this panel could survive as long as he has being out of jail, because he's got enough money. He don't mind paying these attorneys $400,000, $500,000, because it's nothing to him.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brother Williams, I want to stay on that topic with our young people here for a minute, because again, they've grown up in a whole nother era, different era, and they've seen money. They, this rap game and sports and athletics and the way Black folks are living today, was kind of unheard of in the times that we were talking about. They were far and few in between. And even those that don't have money, that are what they say, faking it until you make it, or have that same mindset as if they are of wealth. Is this an association thing that they're trying to play out with this image of who the former president was, being on The Apprentice and all of this stuff? Is it a like that attracts like? I mean, I know when I was young, I wasn't as humble as I am today, and I may have said some things, maybe not as outlandish as our former president, but a lot of our young people kind of speak sometimes to those same tunes. They use profanity as if it was the current vernacular of the day, where it's okay to say it anytime, anywhere. Is there some type of association, you think?
Well, the social media, once they see you go to a site that's a questionable site that talks about evil and see what happens now, and that's why I'm so proud of Ms. Harris, is that Vice President Harris. The reason I'm so proud of her is she's talking about joy. And so what a lot of these guys do is listen to people, black or white, who are always talking bad. And I tell people all the time, I know America has done some things bad. It still is doing things bad. But I can tell you now that it's better than it was in 1950. It's better than it was in 1960. It's better than it was in 1970. We've got to make some progress. Now, I think that we have got to look at what they're throwing at us. I mean, they're throwing so much stuff at us now that it's hard to adjust. But banning the books. And so when you start banning books, you got to fight that battle. Now, so they got us on so many fronts that we are not unified. Now, I'm glad to see the Divine Nine and start pulling together. But I was in a church meeting, and one of the guys in the church told me that the church shouldn't be involved in politics. I said, man, what do you think we got where we go? What do you think Martin Luther King was? The church is always, I remember when I was a young man, when I say a young boy, every Thursday night, we had a revival meeting or a meeting of the mind to find out what we're going to do next week. Who we're going to boycott next week. What's the agenda for the community? And it went from church to church. So it wasn't just one church. People got together as a group. And now I see churches, ministers not pulling together and saying, let's do something as a group. So make sure that we are involved in the community, not just spiritually, but people don't realize Jesus was a revolutionary, and he challenged the status quo, and that's what the church has got to do now. The one thing that disappointed me so much is when they started banning these books that we didn't get together and say, let's just march on City Hall. Let's just march on. I mean, as a group. I mean, pick one night in the month and say we all gonna go to City Hall in every city in the state, and say, why are you banning these books? Because what we don't understand is if you control the past, you control the future. Okay, and so what's happening is they're telling everybody about the past, not realizing, and we don't realize how many things and what we have accomplished. This country would not be anywhere it is today if it had not been for the contributions, both socially, scientifically, and any other way you want to look at it, that we are a better place because of African Americans in this country.
LaVoy, being the former president of the Black elected officials, where are we now?
I am so disappointed. This young lady, I'm not calling no names, but she took over. She lobbied to be the president of Black elected officials. Lobbied, because we had one lady who wanted it, and she said, "No, I want it." So she got it. No meetings, no nothing. We used to give scholarships. They haven't had a gala. What do they do? It's just like they're invisible. You see up in West Palm Beach, they said Black elected official for Kamala. What do we have here? When me and Carlton Moore, we were the first two people to stand up and support President Obama. Okay, because some of the people wanted to support Hillary Clinton. But Carlton, I never forget, he sat down and said, "Look, boy, we got to do something." And we sat down and strategized and had meetings. And next thing you know, more and more people start coming along. As Black elected officials, you've got to take a stand. I remember I know Bobby knows it, when Miriam Mulfont became a supervisory election. That was a collaborative effort between Al.C. Hastings and Black elected officials. We got together at Charles Cherry's office, sitting down, strategizing, and say, who can we put in place? And that's how that happened. We don't do that anymore. When Dandy was living, again, we just sit down and talk about who's the best person for this job. And you couldn't make nobody not run, but we say, this is what we supported. What we're doing now, we're voting for friendship. If you look at some of these city commissioners, that some of the people that own those commissions don't have a clue of what's going on. And they're going to probably get reelected again because they're nice, they're happy. But what are you doing? What are you doing to make this and our community better? And if you're not doing anything for that, then why are you in office?
Yeah. we're past the bottom of the hour, but we just want to continue to ask all our viewers to chime in. This is a conversation, a community conversation about voting, both on all levels, local, state, and national. But we want to get your feedback. We want to hear from you. We have our guest here, LaVoy Williams, with us. And LaVoy, you mentioned some powerful names. You mentioned our former Congressman Al.C. Hastings and William Dandy and Carlton Moore, who will be celebrating his legacy on the 5th of October. And there's another name that I can't allow to escape me, Josephus English. And,
my neighbor, I miss him every day. I miss him every day.
Yeah, I had some conversations with him, and we were hoping that someone would carry that torch and help teach some of our aspiring politicians. What do you have to say to that?
Well, it really should be done in the Black elected officials, and also those people who are in office now should mentor some young people, but that doesn't happen. You got some commissioners who only go to meetings and think they're doing a good job. They're not on any county boards. They're not on any city boards. I mean, when I say legal city boards, you cannot be a good commissioner just at the dais. You got to go out and work the community, find out how you bring businesses to the community, find out how you should do certain things. We had a commission meeting the other night, and we spent almost 2 hours on something that should have taken 15 minutes, if the most. When you do the budget, you required to have passed the budget by the September 30th. They sat there an hour and a half and did not understand even the rules of how that had to be done. They told, why don't we put the millage show it all at one time? And the state law says you can't do, if you got debt service, you got to show people what your debt service is, millage rate, then you have your ad valorem millage rate. So we've got to train commissioners and maybe Mr. Henry, you can put a forum together of elected officials and say, when are we going to train our new leaders? Because that's what we need. We need some new leaders and understand they need to be going to some of these meetings and be involved and understand like the young Democrats, the young Republicans, and I don't believe we need to be in the Republican Party. Believe me, I'm a Democrat, but I think we need people of sound mind with different ideas, but not go along just to get along. So that's what happened to the people, most of the blacks who are in African Americans who are in the Republican Party are those who want money and want prestige, but they don't want to work toward helping our community. Now, there are some different ones. Like you said, Tory Austin, I think he's a good man. I mean, I know he's a good man, and I know he cares about the community. And I was sad to see that he did not get elected also.
Yeah, and sometimes, well, a lot of times we do ourselves a disservice when we vote down ballot. But as it pertains right now, here in the state of Florida, right, our Democratic Party chair and those who are sitting in those positions are supposed to be doing certain things. I get calls every day, something as simple as yard signs. Can't even find yard signs. And when they go to the office to try to get them, you have individuals in that office who are not astute enough to deal with the situation. So it becomes a shouting match or some anger and stuff being spewed about a simple thing as a yard sign. So I agree with you, LaVoy. We need to train we need to have a leadership training program. And Perry and I, we talked about this before. And I know you biting on the chops back there because you want to say something. Come on, Perry.
Say something, man.
No. I'm listening, and let me preface this. I'm not trying to. I don't want to offend anyone. But you guys speak about this as though this is just a Broward issue.
No.
This issue goes everywhere and it's deep. And I guess LaVoy, I mean, we've been talking about the process, and in terms of talking about the process, we've mentioned quite a few things that we no longer do. We're not doing some things, but voting from that golden era that we talk about, that election does not exist anymore. So what are we missing? I mean, we are doing a lot of things. In terms of our elections, African Americans are the driving force behind our elections. Don't get it twisted. We are. But in doing so, as you so eloquently said, we have candidates that don't know their role and their position. We have voters that we know don't know civics. And just last week, and I think what's at the belly of this is that we don't even know the game, the rules of the election game.
That's true.
So what is it that we can begin to do? I mean, because right now the effort is about getting out the vote, but that's not the only part. So what are some of the things that you see that we are just not connecting the dots, especially at this time?
Well, one thing is we need to stop wanting to get paid every time I have a politician. You know, when you start doing these things, that means you're not in it for the good. You're not in it for the people. I'm in it for the money. So if I stop paying you the money, I'm not going to go out and campaign for you. Well, if you don't believe in me and I got to pay you, then I don't owe you from that point on. You know, I never forget, we were, I think it's again Carlton. You know, me and Carlton did a lot of things, and Joe. And we were saying that we got to start paying our own way and not just let those politicians get money to us so we can get out the vote. We need to say, no, I'm going to give you some money. So when you get elected, you at least will listen to what I have to say. If I give you money, I've already met my obligation to you. But if I give you money, you owe me something. At least I'm not trying to buy your vote, but at least I want access. I want to be able to say these ideas make sense. And whenever we've had an opportunity to sit at the table and show our ideas, usually our ideas will prevail if we're messing with people who of integrity. That's the first thing. We've got to stop asking for that. Then we got to start picking against men against women. I see a lot of young black men are saying that women are taking over. They're doing all these other things. I said, wait a minute, you can't be against a sister. Work with her, work together. We are a team. And once you start looking at that, and I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy in the world, but when I see a guy who's done no reading, no research, and then he has an argument and you give him facts, and what I found, especially with a lot of black Republicans who say they support Trump, when I ask them these questions, what do you support? I mean, what is it? And they can't, and they say something, and you contradict what they said. Then they go on with another tangent until you get to the point. No matter what you say, they made up their mind that this is the right guy, and that's what we've got to be able to conquer. And then we've got to get churches involved. I'm telling you, that is the bedrock of our civilization or our culture. And so if we can start getting churches and ministers involved again and say, when they gave the 501c3 exemption to churches, they thought they couldn't be active. I can't be politically active and say, I'm going to say you support this candidate, but I can say you need to be able to know who you're voting for. You need to look at the candidate, show them how to do research on the candidate, show them what questions to ask for the candidate, find out how they have treated your community?
Mhm.
You know, how have they treated your community? Can people evolve? Yes, but you got to prove. When I see you do something wrong, you got to prove to me that you changed. I'm just not going to give you my vote just because you say so. What have you done? How have you changed? What can you do for my community to make it better? Until we ask those questions to all these politicians, we're still going to be in the same thing. And we need to deserve money. You know, I know we're going to another tangent about reparations, but at some point in time, we've got to believe that that's what is due us, because it is. We have, I think somebody says over $1 trillion if they had to pay us now, over $1 trillion that we deserve. And so we just got to work at it, man. I'm teaching a class next Saturday on Black history, on talk about Project 2025, and talk about how we have not learned. I was telling somebody the other day, Moses Dixon. Has anybody ever heard of Moses Dixon? You need to look him up. I mean, this guy found Lincoln University. He's founded a group called the Knights of Liberty. And so he's a powerful guy. But we as Black people have not been told the story about him, because he was a thinker. He was a businessman. You know what I'm saying? So those are the kind of people what I'm going to be talking about, some of the people, unsung heroes that we don't know about, because these people were so powerful that they did not want us to know about them. And that's what's happening with what's going on now. Young people are becoming more inquisitive. They've got the internet. And so now they're saying, we're not going to even teach. We're not going to even let their minds think about who they were. So we're not going to teach anything about their history, because we do, the truth will begin to come out, because now we have so much access to the internet and they cannot keep things away from us. In the 1950s, just show how bad it was. In the 1950s, they said the Ethiopians were Caucasians, because so much history had came through Ethiopia that they had to make sure people thought it was a white nation. You understand what I'm saying?
And LeVoy, you're teaching a class on Saturday. We're gonna put the flyer up so people can take a look at it.
Mr. Williams, you touched on a point, and I hear it all the time, where we talk about the churches and their involvement. And yes, we can agree that the church's role in our elections have changed really in the last 10 to 20 years. I guess my question is, activating the church in this, do we anticipate they will bring in others who we haven't touched, or are they only going to bring in the folk who are already touched?
Initially, it'd probably be the people who already touched. But if they start doing these things, people will come. You know, that's the first thing about it. Once you get it started, you don't need a lot of people to get it started. But if you have a constant going and people are talking positive and getting positive results, next week you might have 10 this week. Next week you might have 20. Next week you might have 100.
Yeah, and I asked that question because the Barna group, who studies church growth, recently came out with an article that says the current generation that began in 2013. Forgive me, I don't know. I know it's not Gen X and it's not millennials, but it Alpha or whatever. That this generation, they've seen in the last, since 2013, and in the generation, I think, with millennials, started with millennials, they've noticed that young people are not returning to church because they're seeing a larger group of young people never exposed to church.
That's true.
And we are coming up on a generation now where we will have youngsters that may never experience church in their life, which for me, being a preacher's kid sounds sort of crazy, but we do see it. So I ask that, not to disparage the church. I believe in the church. I believe the church is the essence of our community. But how do we reconstitute this? I mean, because our politics and our religion tends to be more closely bound than we sometimes give it credit for.
I don't know, Perry, you said something, and obviously, or it's evident that it's taking place now. When you don't have young people in church, or you don't have the church, then you have everything that we're dealing with right now. P. Diddy and the rest of them. All of that stuff happens. So how do we morph the church into, how do I want to say this? How do we not get the young folk interested in church? But it goes back to what you said from the beginning. How do we begin to love each other? What you say, Perry?
Get the church interested in the folk again.
Man.
Look, our churches, we need to start teaching some practical things.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Like, for instance, they're not teaching, I'm 77, and I've got a pretty great credit score. But it wasn't that way for a long time. I wasted a lot of money. I paid higher interest rates by not having good credit. And so we need to begin to teach our kids in high school that, look, sometimes you cannot get everything you want. But if you do get it, make sure you pay your debts on time. Because if I get an interest rate at 2% and you paying 6%, I'm saving more money than you, and I can be more prosperous than you because you spending more money on your bad credit. So those kind of things we can begin to teach. We can begin to teach our history, our culture, teaching poetry. When I came along in church, we were fighting to get the largest speech. We had the Christmas speeches. Now today they give them 2-inch speeches, and they say, okay, kid. No, we got to challenge our children, because if you challenge them, and look, I used to love going to church, summer, Sunday school, Bible school, because the people were involved and we did things. We went to the beach once a month. You got to do things kids want to do. I don't know why they don't do that anymore. I mean, once a month during the summertime, I was still a child, but they took all the kids to the beach. We had dances. So you got to do something to bring the kids there. And once you get them there and teach them, man, you have so many things going on.
As we talk and listen, I know maybe the young folks get tired of hearing us say the same thing, but it's the same thing that kept us. Are we moving? So I don't know. This thing can be so intertwined together that we don't move from where we stuck at. We're talking about getting the kids involved on one issue, and then on the other issue, we're saying that the kids are not marching, they're not involved, and we try to find out the reasons. What is preventing the young folk from doing this? Is it our behavior? Do they see something in us? Are we being that hypocritical that they see this and they don't want to be a part of this? Man.
Yeah.
Hey, Bobby, when your daddy did something, you didn't know everything your daddy did.
Nope.
We let our kids know everything we did wrong. Mm-hmm. Ain't nobody perfect, but they didn't let you see that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? We got people now, they let the kids do everything, see what they're doing wrong, and then the kids don't have no respect for them. And it is not that he's a bad person, because he's not done anything anybody else didn't do. He just didn't do, like when you say children need to have a place and that we forgot that there's a time in the stage that you need to learn and learn how to do certain things. You know,
want to be their friend.
And Brother
you
Williams,
can't be their friend.
no.
I mean, you
And
can
Brother
be their
Williams,
friend, but you can't be their friend all the time. There's got to be I don't want to be a tyrant. I don't want them to be afraid of me. But at the same time, I want them to respect me, and I want them to understand that I got their best interest at heart.
well, I beg to differ a little bit. You want to be a little afraid of me, I think. But Brother Williams, I do want to say this because you guys are bringing up so many great points when it comes to this newer generation, this younger generation, and especially when we talk about some of our young black men, especially those that are voting age right now, that were raised by single parent mothers that had an opportunity to see some things we never saw. And when we talk about their dislike, their distrust for black women and things that they might have experienced against their fathers, or the fact that their fathers weren't there, they blame their mothers. Are we having that conversation? I know we're probably not getting that deep with these young brothers, but these are some conversations, and I see my brother Guy Wheeler on live view, and these are some things that we're seriously having to deal with some of our young black men when it comes to their emotion and their feelings toward their own people, their own sisters.
Well,
That's it, right? They say they're strong black women. Well, that's what you want. I don't want no weak woman.
mhm.
And so some way they believe that a woman is not supposed to be strong. That's not part of our culture. Never has been.
Mhm.
And so we got to let them understand that you got to emulate us, not emulate them. You got to take our values in, not someone else's values. And until we immerse ourselves in relearning, and I'm not talking about relearning history, because I don't think nobody's gonna do a lot of research on history, but you need to stop talking about the same people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to get, like, for instance, I'm giving some of my speech away from Saturday, but Harriet Beecher Stowe. Now, this is a white woman who, her book single-handedly made it possible for the Civil War. We don't even talk about it. You ask most black people, they wouldn't even know who that was. And then Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was a brave, strong, spiritual, loving brother. But he was so powerful that they had to make a caricature out of him, make him a buffoon, so that black men wouldn't begin to research and say, damn, I want to be like him. The same thing, the things that we'll be talking about, the people that I'm showing you on Saturday. I'm going to bring some people that you've never heard of before. And they were so powerful. They were businessmen. One guy, and I'm not going to name his name right now, he died. He left over $100,000 at the time, which is worth about $3 million a day on today's dollars. This is a black man who was a slave. And out of slavery, he had the intestines and intestines to be successful. They were voting. They sued the state of Massachusetts about voting in 1780 something. Do you understand what I'm saying? We always know we always knew who we were. Thomas Jefferson knew who we were. He knew we were smart, but they chose money over morality and people. That's simply what it was. It was never, they always knew we were not dumb. They always knew. Okay.
I want to do this, Lord. I want to back up just a little bit. I want to go back to a comment that one of our viewers made, Ms. McCleary, and I want to bring it home so we can hear. When she said, that's it, electing friends, not qualified folk. Black has many nationalities of folk. History and heritage are different. Training and education of issues, procedures must be trained. Okay. Now,
I agree with that.
Yeah. We are in this position right now, right, on the precipice of perhaps making history again. I know we make history every day, but we're about to make history again. If we engage in this process that has been made for us to participate so we can reap the benefits of our participation. And it's hard for me to fathom or to understand how is it that if we can move forward from a process that we are not engaged in that process, and that some orange-haired buffoon, we would rather spend our time dealing with him and going where he is trying to take us, as opposed to taking us to where we can rightfully belong, and we can take ourselves there. What have we done that's so indifferent? That's what I can't. It's hard for me to understand that. What have we done to ostracize a force that can take us to where we need to be? And that's our own people.
It's a belief in us. We got to believe in us. Like I was telling, you know, when you start talking about universities, if you tell a black person you got to go to Harvard or Morehouse, which one you gonna get a better education at? And I'm telling you, 90% of them will say Harvard. And I'm saying, why do you think you get a better education at Harvard? They got the same books. If I got a good teacher, he don't have a good teacher, I'm gonna learn more. But what I'm gonna get at Morehouse is I'm gonna get love. Dr. Higgins, I tell this story all the time. I have a minor in literature simply because of one teacher. She sat me down. She said, "Mr. Williams, why are you getting a C in my class?" I said, "I don't like literature. I think it's wrong. I don't need to be here." And she sat me down for an hour and a half explaining to me what literature was, how it impacted your lives, how it is part of the civilization. And I tell you what, I learned so much of that hour and a half. I started taking other courses in literature so I could really enjoy it. That's education. And so when I tell you, if you look at the leaders around this country, I'd say 70% of them went to HBCUs. Okay? So why aren't we pushing those as being good? Why do we think somebody else's organizations are better than ours? I'm not saying don't go to Harvard, because you're going to meet some people that you would never meet somewhere else. But don't tell me my institution's not good, that I'm not preparing the next generation for success. And that's just the truth. We have got to begin to believe in ourselves. Mentally is where we are enslaved now. We are not enslaved physically, but mentally we still haven't got to the point that we are equal, that we are deserving of this. That's where we're trying to move. And that's where I'm trying to get our people to go move to understand our greatness and understand that we have always been great. Oh, and you don't measure a society by the least of us. You measure society where the greatness are, because we all aspire to be the Kamala Harris. We all aspire to be Robert Smith. We all aspire to be these people. So these are the things that we measure ourselves at. You don't measure yourself on the level of a crack addict. That's not us. You understand what I'm saying? So when I tell our kids, you look at the greatness of us, that's us. And when you aspire to get there, then everybody will be better. Everybody will land where they're supposed to land when I know that I can reach the mountaintop.
Mm-hmm. Wow, we're at the top of the hour, guys, and this conversation is really, brother Williams. I'm hoping we can put that flyer back up and we can encourage people to make sure they make their way over to this event this weekend, this Saturday over at Piney Grove. But before we start to close out for the night, any other comments from our viewers? And Brother Perry, I know you have a few things you want to chime in, but Brother Williams, you mentioned this brother Moses Dixon. I hope you share some more insight on him on your event on Saturday. But one of my family members is an alumni of that illustrious Lincoln University up there in Oxford, Pennsylvania. And I can tell you, I visited that campus, getting goosebumps here just talking about it. But again, for us to aspire to the highest of us will lift us all up. And I'm in total agreement with that. I think we are a proud people of a proud race that have done awesome things throughout this entire world, and will continue to do so. We have another event coming up where they're going to honor what our young sisters who recently passed, Sadowski from African American. Yeah. So much is going on. So much we have to be proud of. And before we go ahead and go around and close out, I want to let Brother Perry chime in for a minute and give us his feedback. And then, Brother LeBoy, we want to go back to you and kind of give us your closing comment.
Well, first, Mr. Williams, thank you. And I really wish I could be there Saturday to be in that group to hear this, to hear this teaching and to learn more. I to close this, I'm been thinking that we do a lot of talk about voting, and that talk can be very intimidating for some people who aren't aware, and so we end up dealing with their obstacles. And if there's just one thing that I just want to emphasize of what voting means to me, it's more about just counting. That's, for me, that's all voting is counting. And if we remove people from understanding that one basic principle of how you can be involved in the counting and understanding the counting, I think it'll go a long way for us. And it will help in those areas even when we don't quite understand. But I believe we can all understand that we need to do a better job of understanding and counting. And that is a principle I learned very early as a child, watching elders during this election process. One of the story I remember all the time is on election nights, when we had precinct captains or that person in our community who could give you the vote before the polls could even tell you what that number was.
That's true.
And with so much technology and with so much access, why have we let that one small principle go? And that is, we need to understand how to count, and we need to know the count in our community. I'm not talking about anybody else's. I'm talking about for us. And if we can just sort of emphasize and get people interested in knowing, we got people interested in knowing and wanting to know the winner and wanting to pick the winner. But if you got a faulty system, or if you got a system that is just prone to make mistakes, which we do, then it's incumbent upon us to have some assurances for our communities. Because all of us, I know, on this show right now, we will all get calls between now and election day from people asking us who to vote for.
Yep. That's true.
And if we have that much influence, then how much more influence can we have in pointing people in the right direction? And I love these conversations, but we have got to, as Mr. Williams and we have all agreed, that we just got to get down to some basic principles and understand those better.
I agree.
Know the count. Brother Williams, any closing remarks?
No, I just want you to look at Carl G. Woodson and look what he has to say. If you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he's inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept his inferior status, but he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, and you do not have to order him to the back door, he will go without being told, and if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. That's Carter G. Woodson. Brothers, and I want y'all, I'm gonna turn out, I want y'all to look at Heather McGee. She has an author. She talks about the Sum of Us, and also Isabel Wilkerson's The Caste System.
Yes.
Those are the kinds of books that I'm reading and trying to interpret, because it's not about who we are, it's who we believe we are. And we are some great people. We got to let our children know all the things that we have overcome. If any other people had been put in slavery for 400 years, come out sane, and not just come out sane, come out thriving. When they left slavery, they built cities. Straight out of slavery. Straight out of slavery, they started conventions. Straight out of slavery. Do you understand? And not just that, and I know we got to go, but brothers, we are our own best ambassadors when we begin to tell the true story.
Mhm.
All right.
Wow.
Brother Bobby?
Okay, a couple of things. Again, our viewer, Ms. McCleary, says, men, boys, home, parents, and the village must recognize we are one black race together. We can accomplish as much voting and moving forward. I want to just say,
Thank you, Meredith. She's a great person too.
For the next few weeks, we're concentrating on voting. We got a couple of very interesting shows coming up. Next week, we got a former MAGA person will be on our show.
Okay.
Caucasian fella.
Yep.
And we're going to have that discussion, and we want everybody to join us and join in the conversation. And then the week after that, we're going to have Evan Goldman he's an executive director, public affairs, Federation of Broward County, the Jewish Federation of Broward County. So we're going to mix this thing up.
Okay.
We're going to have these conversations from very different perspectives and cover this whole gamut of where we need to be as a people. And then I want to say this. If you don't know, you soon will know. And if that particular mentality are treating our Haitian brothers and sisters who actually taught us how to fight and gain our freedom in this country, if we allow individuals to talk about them in a defaming, dirty, low-down, nasty, cowardly way, then who are we? Who are we to let somebody who taught us how to overcome and how to fight and now being degraded? Who are we? I ask that we come together collectively and present ourselves as a unified force to change what we have come up against. And we can do it. We've been given that opportunity through the right to vote. And that is what we should do. So I thank you all. And I say good night to our listening audience. Please join us next week and tell somebody we got a MAGA coming on, or reform MAGA, to have this conversation. Brother Williams, thank you. And get your black elected officials back together.
Well, I'll try. I'll do my best.
Please.
Yeah.
I tell you, it's a shame. We've got to get it together, and maybe after this election we'll get new leadership. And what they did was they want to eliminate former elected officials from being part of it, and which is wrong. And we're the only organization that even do that. If you're a congressperson, you're always a congressperson, no matter what. You can always go to the cafeteria. I don't know if you've ever been to the cafeteria in the Capitol, but that's a good place to go eat sometime.
Okay. And LeVar, before we go, that we have a flyer just for some activities. If you're interested in doing something to get involved, here's a list of activities.
Let me take a screenshot of that.
And that's for everybody.
Okay.
And the poll posse is coming, where anybody can get involved. Even if you have been involved in the criminal justice system on the other level, what you said, you still can get involved. So thank you.
Thank you, brothers. Thank you all. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, David. Thank you, Perry. I appreciate it. I enjoyed the time with you guys. Now I'm gonna go watch the Cowboys get beat.
Hey, some of that
man, I can't watch, man. I can't see my team in this predicament.
Okay.